Welcome to the Deep Dive, brought to you by the All Sorts podcast.
Hello.
Today, we're scratching the surface. Well, actually, we're digging much, much deeper into a really fascinating topic. It spans millennia, it spans mystique, the incredible world of cats in Asian culture and folklore.
Yeah, and these aren't just, the furry friends curled up on our sofas.
Yeah.
Across Asia, for ages, cats have been seen in so many different ways: protectors, tricksters, symbols of good luck even. Pretty fearsome supernatural beings.
Absolutely. You shared a really great stack of sources with us. We've got articles, historical accounts, deep dives into folklore, art, and our mission, as always, is to sort of navigate through all that, pull out the most surprising facts, the key insights, and give you that shortcut, that informed perspective on this really rich cultural tapestry.
So yeah, let's get into it. Let's see what these sources tell us about how cats have, purred and prowled their way through history and belief across Asia.
Okay, let's unpack this right from the start. Our journey begins like thousands of years ago in China. These sources show cats have been around there for a surprisingly long time, right?
Oh, incredibly long. There are archaeological finds in Shaanxi province. They date back over 5,000 years. We're talking around 3,500 BC. They found feline bones in these ancient farming settlements.
Wow, 5,000 years. Were these like the same kind of cats we have lounging around today?
Well, that was the initial question, but later analysis, it showed they were actually bones from the leopard cat. That's a wild relative, a distant cousin of the modern domesticated cat.
Oh, okay.
So maybe not exactly fluffy, sleeping on the bed, but these feline relatives were definitely living alongside humans, maybe even, as one source charmingly put it, purring in Chinese homes for millennia.
And they had different jobs back then, depending on your social status.
Totally. For the nobility, the elite, often cherished companions, valued for their elegance and grace, but for your average farmer, their role was super practical. It was pest control.
Right, keeping rats out of the grain.
Exactly. Keeping rats away from those precious grain stores was, absolutely crucial for survival back then.
So this dual role, beloved pet and essential worker, which makes this next point something that really jumped out from the sources kind of fascinating. With such a long history in China, why aren't cats in the Chinese zodiac?
It's one of those great cultural head-scratchers, isn't it? The story everyone knows is the legend, right? The zodiac race. The tale goes that the rat was supposed to wake the cat up for the big race where the Jade Emperor was picking the animals, but, the rat conveniently forgot, so the cat missed out.
Ah, the classic betrayal. Hence the supposed eternal feud between cats and rats.
Pretty much. But, the sources also offer a more historical possibility.
Okay.
It suggested that maybe when the zodiac was actually being put together, cats just weren't common enough as pets across all of China, not like, say, the ox or the pig, which were absolutely central to farming and daily life.
That actually makes a lot of practical sense. But then you look over at Vietnam and things get really interesting. They do have a year of the cat. It replaces the rabbit from the Chinese version.
They do. It's fascinating. The Vietnamese zodiac clearly borrows heavily from the Chinese one, but they made a couple of key swaps, like they swapped the ox for the water buffalo.
Which makes sense, given how important water buffalo are in Vietnam.
Well, exactly, for rice farming. But the cat replacing the rabbit, that's the really unique one.
So what's the theory there? Is there a different legend?
Well, the most compelling idea the sources point to is actually linguistic. It might be a word mix-up.
A word mix-up.
Yeah. The Chinese word for the year of the rabbit is a, but that sounds really similar to Mao, which is the Chinese word for cat.
Okay.
And Mao, in turn, sounds almost identical to Mao, which is the Vietnamese word for cat.
Huh. So a case of similar sounds leading to a cultural substitution over time. That's actually a brilliant insight into how language can ripple through tradition.
It really is, and it just shows how these cultural things aren't set in stone. They shift and adapt as they travel.
Speaking of travel, how did these cats, so significant in China, find their way to Japan, a country that today seems, completely cat crazy?
They arrived pretty much as accidental tourists, or, working passengers. In the mid-6th century, ships were sailing from China to Japan carrying sacred Buddhist scriptures.
Right.
And guess who was on board? Cats. Their job was to protect those invaluable texts from being chewed up by rodents during the voyage.
So they came over basically as pest control for holy text, but it ended up becoming much more than that.
Precisely. They were brought for a very specific practical reason, but they quickly wove themselves into the fabric of Japanese society. The sources really highlight the Edo period, that's roughly 1615 to 1868, as the time when Japan just got completely hooked on cats.
And we know this because
Look at the art from that period. There's just this explosion of cat-themed paintings, woodblock prints, illustrations. Artists were clearly fascinated, showing cats in everyday life, but also, crucially, in stories and folklore.
and that art, maybe combined with some of their natural traits, that's where we start seeing the more mystical, supernatural side emerge in Japan, the kaibyuch.
Yes, exactly. Kaibish is the general term. It basically means strange cat or mysterious cat. It covers all these supernatural feline figures in Japanese folklore cats that gain powers, often through age or size.
What was it about cats specifically that made people think, okay, this creature could definitely be supernatural?
Well, it boils down to just observing them closely, but maybe interpreting those observations through a, well, pre-scientific, more superstitious lens. Think about it.
Okay.
Their eyes. The pupils change shape so dramatically, from slits to big moons. Their fur, especially in dry air, can actually crackle with static electricity.
Right, I've seen that.
Imagine seeing that and not knowing about static. It could look like mystical sparks or fire. Then there's how silently they move, those sharp claws and teeth, the fact they're nocturnal hunters, active when humans sleep.
Yeah, you put it all together, and it's easy to see how those perfectly normal cat things could seem uncanny, maybe even a bit magical or spooky.
Exactly. Those traits become the building blocks for stories about supernatural powers.
Okay, let's get into some of the specific types of kaibish. First up, the beckoning-neko.
Right, the beckoning-neko. It translates roughly as changed cat or sometimes monster cat. These are usually domestic cats, often ones that have lived a really long time or grown unusually large, and they gain these supernatural abilities.
And what kinds of things could a beckoning-neko do? Are we talking cats?
Sometimes, yes. The abilities vary quite a bit in the different stories, but some common ones are walking on their hind legs like humans, actually speaking human languages.
Well,
Shapeshifting is a big one. They can take on human form. And sometimes the tales get pretty dark, like they might eat their owner and then take their place.
yikes. Chilling.
Yeah, I know.
They're also said to be able to control the dead, like reanimating corpses, and even summon ghostly fireballs, these sort of will-o'-the-wisps.
I can see why people might have been genuinely afraid of them, especially that shapeshifting part.
Oh, definitely. The sources mention a real historical fear associated with cats that had particularly long tails.
Why long tails?
The belief was that a long tail was a sign the cat was older, maybe closer to transforming into a beckoning-neko. This fear was apparently so common that some people actually practiced bobbing or docking kittens' tails, sort of a preventative measure.
Wow, a real-world practice stemming directly from folklore. That's amazing.
It really shows how deeply ingrained these beliefs were.
Yeah.
Now, closely related to the beckoning-neko, and sometimes confused with it, is the nekomata.
Oh, the one with the split tail. Often seen in pictures with two tails.
Exactly. That forked or split tail is the most famous visual cue. Though, interestingly, the actual meaning of mata in nekomata is debated by folklorists.
Some argue it literally refers to the two tails, mata meaning fork or crotch. Others suggest it might mean something like repetition, referring to how they transform with age, or even link it to monkeys. Mata sounding like a word for monkey, because of their supposed agility in mountain trees. It's complex.
Huh. So, visually, it's the tails, but the name might mean more. What's the main difference in folklore between a beckoning-neko and a nekomata?
Generally, nekomata are often depicted as being more malicious, more inherently dangerous than the beckoning-neko, which could sometimes just be mischievous or acting out of revenge. And yeah, the defining physical trait is usually the split tail for the nekomata.
And the sources mention different kinds of nekomata, too.
Yeah, broadly, two main types emerge from the folklore. There's an older tradition of mountain-dwelling nekomata. These appear in earlier literature described as large, ferocious beasts, sometimes man-eating, lurking in remote mountain areas. Think more like a cryptid.
Like a mountain monster cat.
Kind of, yeah. Then there's the type that became more common in folklore, especially from the Edo period onwards, the domestic cat nekomata. This is the belief that your ordinary house cat, if it lives long enough, could transform into this powerful, often malevolent spirit.
So it shifted from a wild monster to something potentially lurking right in your home. That seems even scarier.
It definitely brings the threat closer, and this belief fueled the folk wisdom that maybe you shouldn't keep a cat for too long, just in case.
And their powers.
Yeah.
What are nekomata associated with?
They have a really strong connection to death and necromancy in the tales. They're said to be able to animate and control dead bodies, sometimes through these weird ritualistic dances they perform.
Creepy.
Very. They're also linked to causing strange fires, unexplained illnesses, and other unsettling events. Their power is often said to grow with age, and especially if they were abused or mistreated during their lives. They might come back to haunt the humans who wronged them.
It's fascinating how negative experiences like mistreatment or just old age become these triggers for dark supernatural transformations in the folklore.
It really reflects human anxieties and interpretations projected onto the animals. There is also this belief that cats are naturally drawn to corpses, maybe because of the smell of decay.
Ugh, okay.
And this linked the Nekomata in some stories to another corpse-stealing yokai called the Kasha. Sometimes they were even seen as the same thing. You see Nekomata depicted quite often in Edo period, yokai scrolls, and art, sometimes shown in the process of transforming, standing up on two legs, maybe playing a shamisen.
A musical monster cat?
Well, yeah, and there's a dark irony there because traditional shamisen were often made using cat skin.
Oh, wow. Okay, that adds another layer.
Definitely.
So we have these figures of fear, these monster cats, but then almost the complete opposite end of the spectrum, there's another super famous Japanese cat figure, the Maneki-neko.
Ah, yes. The beckoning cat. From terrifying spirits that might eat you to this incredibly popular symbol of good fortune, everyone knows the Maneki-neko.
You see them absolutely everywhere, right? Shops, restaurants, homes.
Everywhere. They're meant to bring good luck, attract customers, invite prosperity. The classic look is a seated cat, often a calico Japanese bobtail breed, holding an old gold coin, a koban, and it has one paw raised up.
And that raised paw gesture, that's the part that often confuses people outside Japan, isn't it? It looks more like waving goodbye.
It really does to Western eyes. But the traditional Japanese beckoning gesture is different. You hold your palm facing down and sort of curl your fingers downwards and inwards repeatedly. That's what the cat is doing, beckoning, not waving.
Okay. Palm down, fingers
Yeah.
curling in.
Exactly. And fun fact, because of that confusion, some Maneki-neko made specifically for export to Western countries actually do have the paw facing upwards to look more like the Western wave.
Huh. That's a great little piece of cultural adaptation. And it doesn't matter which paw is raised.
It does, traditionally. The left paw raised is said to beckon customers, so you see that a lot in businesses. The right paw raised is supposed to beckon money and good fortune, so that's good for homes and businesses too.
And sometimes both are up.
Yep, for extra power, I guess. Double the look.
And the colors mean different things too, right? It's not just white.
Right. White is the original and most traditional color, symbolizing general good luck and purity. But over time, other colors became popular, often influenced by feng shui principles. Black is said to ward off evil spirits. Red is for good health. Gold, or yellow, obviously, for wealth. Pink is often linked to finding love or romance.
So many layers of meaning packed into one little figurine. But like the Kaibi, the actual origin story, it's a bit fuzzy. Lots of different tales.
Very fuzzy. The sources say the figure seems to have first appeared around the mid-19th century, maybe 1850s or so, but there isn't one single universally accepted origin story. Instead, you get these wonderful local legends, often tied to specific temples or areas.
Like the famous one about the cat saving someone important.
Exactly. Probably the most well-known story comes from Guchukuji Temple in Tokyo. The legend says a feudal lord, Tino Utaka, and his samurai were taking shelter under a tree during a thunderstorm. They saw the temple priest's cat seemingly beckoning them towards the temple gate.
Okay.
They went over to investigate, and just moments later, lightning struck the very tree they'd been standing under. They were saved.
Wow. Close call.
Definitely. So, out of gratitude, the lord became a patron of the temple, it flourished, and later, the Maneki-neko was supposedly created to honor that life-saving cat. There are other tales, too. A cat leading a lost warlord to safety during battle. A poor old woman whose cat told her in a dream to make and sell cat figurines.
Or the one about the poor shop owner.
Yeah, the impoverished shop or inn owner who takes in a starving stray cat. The cat, grateful, sits out front and starts beckoning customers, bringing prosperity back to the business.
It's really striking, though. Even with all these different origin stories, the core idea is consistent. A cat intervenes, and good fortune follows. Whether it's saving a life or bringing in business, it shows this deep belief in their ability to influence luck.
It's a powerful counterpoint to the scary Kaibi, isn't it? It shows just how complex and, sometimes contradictory the perception of cats is in the folklore.
Oh, and one quick clarification from the sources. While they're super popular in Chinese communities worldwide, and sometimes get called Chinese lucky cats, the Maneki-neko definitely originated in Japan.
Got it. Japanese invention, global appeal. So beyond these specific myths and legends, cats are just deeply embedded in art and daily life across Asia, generally speaking.
Oh, absolutely. We talked about their popularity in Japanese Edo art, but they were also a huge subject in Chinese art way back, especially during the Song Dynasty. You see these lovely paintings of cuddly house cats or kids playing with kittens. Very affectionate portrayals.
And didn't China even have a specific cat deity? Yes, Li Shao. She was revered as a goddess, mostly linked with fertility and, importantly, protecting the crops, which, of course, meant dealing with rats and other pests. She was also seen as driving away evil spirits.
Protector of the harvest.
Exactly. And there's this wonderful kind of funny creation myth about her. Apparently, the gods first asked cats, led by Li Shao, to oversee the running of the world. But the cats were, well, more interested in napping in the sun and chasing mice.
Sounds about right.
So the gods decided maybe humans would be better suited for the job, gave them the gift of speech, and put them in charge instead. Though, some cat lovers might argue about who's really in charge.
Huh. Very true. Now, just for context, because you see other feline figures in, say, Chinese art, those food dogs you often see guarding entrances, those aren't related to these domestic cat myths, are they?
No, that's a good point to clarify. Foo dogs, despite the somewhat misleading name, are actually stylized imperial guardian lions. Lions aren't native to China. They came via trade routes and became these powerful symbols of protection. Artisans depicted them based on descriptions, often blending them with mythical features or maybe local dog breeds, which is why they have that unique look. They're usually in pairs, male and female, guarding temples or important buildings against threats, both physical and spiritual. Very important, but distinct from our domestic cats and yukai.
And tigers, too. Obviously important, but a different category.
Absolutely. Tigers are hugely significant in Chinese culture, symbols of power, courage associated with yin, the West, wind in Taoism, royalty in Buddhism. They're the third animal in the zodiac, considered the ruler of land animals. But again, different symbolism than the house cat or the magical beckoning-neko or nekomata.
Okay, great context.
Yeah.
Now, for a completely modern twist that honestly blew my mind when I read in the sources. Hello, Kitty.
Ah, yes, the global icon.
Is she? Actually.
A cat. According to Sanrio, the company who created her, no, she is officially not a cat.
Wait, what? Get out of here.
It's true. Their official line is that she's a cartoon character. She's a little girl. She's a friend. Her full name is Kitty White. She's British, lives outside London, and she even has a twin sister named Mimi.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
The most famous cat-like character on the planet isn't actually a cat. That is genuinely wild.
Isn't it? It just goes to show. But her immense popularity, whether she's feline or not, definitely speaks to the enduring global appeal of that cute cat-like imagery. And this cultural connection, it plays out in modern life too, like with cat cafes.
Which started in Asia, didn't they?
They did. Japan is famous for them now. They have over 150. But the world, the very first one, the Cat Flower Garden, actually opened its doors in Taipei, Taiwan, way back in 1998.
Wow, Taiwan was first.
Yep. And Taiwan also has places like Hotong Cat Village, this former mining town that's completely reinvented itself as a cat tourism destination. It has like over 200 resident cats wandering around. And Japan has maybe a dozen or so of these cat islands.
Islands?
Yeah, places like Oshima, which became famous because the cats vastly outnumber the human residents, something like 6 cats for every person. They've even had to implement neutering programs to manage the populations humanely.
It just demonstrates how that deep historical root, that cultural fascination, keeps finding new ways to express itself today.
It really does. And speaking of cultural perceptions and maybe things that seem a bit strange, one last area the sources touched on brings us back to that initial idea of cats being mysterious. Their supposed link to seeing ghosts or sensing the paranormal.
Ah, yes, the classic image. The cat staring intently at a blank wall or an empty corner, making the hairs on the back of your neck stand up because you think it sees something you don't.
Exactly that scenario.
Yeah.
And the sources suggest that this perception, it's probably not about actual ghosts. It's more likely about how we interpret their behavior, which stems from senses that are just way, way better than ours.
Better in what ways?
Well, think about it. Their night vision. It's estimated to be up to 6 times better than human night vision. Their hearing is incredibly sensitive, especially to high-pitched sounds. They can hear rodents rustling, things we'd never pick up.
Okay.
Their whiskers aren't just decorative. They sense tiny changes in air currents and vibrations. And their sense of smell is way more acute than ours.
So when a cat is laser focused on that seemingly empty space. It's probably reacting to a faint sound, the tiny movement in the shadows, a scent trail, maybe even just an air pressure change that we are completely oblivious to.
That's the most likely scientific explanation, yes. They're perceiving real, natural stimuli that just fall outside the range of our human senses. Then you add in our own psychology.
Like what?
Like pareidolia. That's our brain's tendency to see patterns or faces or assign meaning to random or ambiguous things, especially if we're already feeling a bit spooked or uneasy in a place.
Right, so we see the cat staring, we feel a bit weird anyway, and we project onto the cat that it must be seeing something supernatural.
Pretty much. Our interpretation fills in the blanks based on our own feelings and cultural ideas about ghosts or spirits.
So science offers a pretty rational explanation for a lot of it then. Does that take away all the mystery, though? That feeling you get when your cat just stares?
Well, the sources do acknowledge that while science can explain a lot of the behavior, for many people there's still that feeling that there's, as one source put it, always room for a little mystery. And maybe that mystery is part of their enduring charm, part of why we find them so captivating.
What an absolutely incredible journey we've taken. From ancient companions and vital pest controllers sharing homes with humans literally millennia ago, to becoming these fearsome shape-shifting spirits in folklore, revered deities protecting harvests, powerful symbols of good luck attracting fortune, and even now, the furry focus of modern tourism hotspots. Cats hold this truly unique, multifaceted, mystical place in Asian cultures.
Yeah, we've really unpacked so many layers today. History, mythology, belief, art. It shows how these creatures are so much more than just pets. They're characters, protagonists even, in stories that have shaped worldviews for centuries. It really enriches our understanding.
It really does. And it makes you pause and think, doesn't it? How do our own cultural beliefs, even our modern scientific understanding, influence the kinds of stories we tell or continue to believe about the animals we share our lives with? Do we shape the myths, or do the myths subtly shape how we see the world, including maybe our own cat napping on the sofa right now?
That's a fantastic thought to leave with. It really is. And, just as these fascinating stories have traveled through time and across cultures, deepening our understanding, we really hope you, listening, will continue exploring new depths with us here on the All Sorts podcast.
Yes. Please be a part of our journey of discovery. If this deep dive sparked something for you, a new insight, a moment of wonder, maybe just some cool facts to share, please do like, share, and subscribe to the All Sorts podcast on YouTube. Honestly, diving deep is always better when we do it together. And don't let the exploration stop here. We've got other deep dives already crafted, waiting for you to explore. You can also join our community and continue the conversation by following All Sorts podcasts on X, Instagram, and Threads. Let's keep learning, keep connecting, and keep finding those aha moments together.